Okay, I was waiting for the First Lady. She said she was coming. I know y'all, Cheryl and Walter have done a good job, huh? Y'all like the book fest?
Yes.
When she comes in, I'm gonna embarrass her, so wherever she is. Anyway, listen, this is the thing. Y'all heard that thing about not interrupting anybody during the thing? That doesn't apply to this. This is just to be clear about what this is that we're about to do.
He lies.
I don't know about you, but the Book Fest, it's been unbelievable. We have some of the best thinkers around, and it's great. New Orleans, as you know, is the center of the universe, once again, as all of us think so, because we grew up here. And I've been listening to all these brilliant people talk about all these brilliant things. And of course, when you talk about New Orleans, you got to think about a little bit of fun, a little bit of food, a little bit of music. And so I know this is a book festival, but kind of really what it is, it's a reason to listen to Irma Thomas and eat crawfish later. Like we wrap everything about food, music, fun, and families. And this great city that we live in that is 300 plus years old, that is actually the soul of the nation. If everybody would kind of live like we live in New Orleans, people would be more joyful and more happy. We thought that maybe, thank you, amen to that we would have a talk, not so much about the mind, but the heart. And just remembering wonderful things that happened to you in your life in the city of New Orleans. So this is, in fact, a participatory event. You know how she said, with 10 minutes left, y'all gonna get up? And no, that's not true either. Okay, it's gonna be about 20 minutes of anybody in here that's got a good story that you wanna tell about how you grew up with your mama and them, and what y'all eat, and where y'all went, and where y'all play ball at, or where you learned how to dance at High Cells, or wherever it was, some of y'all from uptown. Now, for those of you that did not grow up in New Orleans, I'm very sorry. Okay, so let me just apologize that you didn't get to grow up in this glorious place, because we're about to go back to Mr. Bingle and...
Oh, wow.
Morgus.
Who doesn't remember Morgus? Remember Morgus? Y'all remember Mr. Bingle? Y'all remember Gotchas?
Wow.
All right, it ain't there no more. Y'all remember Maison Blanche? Y'all remember Cast and Best Off? Y'all remember the malts and everything you used to get at Cast and Best Off on Claiborne Avenue?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So,
Turtles.
in any event, I'm here with my really, really dear friends, Tim Francis of the Francis clan. You know the Francis clan, Norman and all the other people. Tim was adopted, so don't worry about that. Currence over here is the black sheep of the Currence family. He should have been king of Mardi Gras, but they were like, no, you got to go somewhere else. And then this one right here, Ella's little girl, T. Martin, you know, and the entire family. Now look, you wouldn't be New Orleans if people who were supposed to show up didn't show up, or if they didn't come late. So Donna Brazil was supposed to be here. And she asked me to say to you, she's so sorry she couldn't come, but she had something more important to do because she's got to be on ABC tomorrow morning to talk about how we're going to save the country. So she asked me to let y'all forgive her from being here. And then Sarah Broom, who's one of our great authors that the world now knows was going to be here today, but she got called away because she said she got tired the Cats and Best Off clothes and she wanted to go shop someplace else, so she couldn't come. So y'all got a sense of what we're about to do here, right? All right, so I need all of y'all to think, happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way. I'm Italian. No, we love y'all. You know, the Irish, all right. We want y'all to all think about, you know, all the wonderful things that you remember about New Orleans. And if you have some not so great things that you want to talk about, that's okay too. But this was a little bit about levity to remember the deepness and the richness and the authenticity of this city that is a city of families. It's a city of history. It's a city of culture. It's a city of music. It's a city of neighborhoods. And it's a city that we think really reflects in many ways the soul of the nation. And I couldn't be more blessed to be with all three of these folks, all of whom I've been knowing my whole life mostly and grown up with. So I don't know which one of y'all wants to start. Currence, why don't we start with you? Because you are the most introverted of the crowd. To talk about what you remember growing up, where you went to school at. Which, by the way, for those of you that are not from New Orleans, if you come here, like the first thing we only want to know about you is where you went to high school. Okay, we don't care if you went to Yale or Harvard. We don't really care about that. But if you went to St. Martin's or St. John the Baptist Vianney or Jesuit High School, or you went to Sacred Heart, or you went to McGee, or you went to Forte, or wherever you happened to go back in the day, that's really all we care about you because it tells us everything we need to know about whether we like you or not. All right, so Currence, I'm turning it over to you to talk about your best memories and joys or whatever about the city of New Orleans? Let's get it.
I mean, I don't know how you start to narrow that down at all.
We'll try.
I grew up uptown. Neither of my folks were from New Orleans, but they migrated here when my dad went to law school. My mom was a history teacher, and so we plugged in early at Marjorie Walters. If anybody remembers Marjorie Walters, they were a Country Day before Country Day was Country Day. And then she moved over to start teaching at Sam Barth. So at kindergarten, I moved over to school where we had gym 3 times a day, and it would be an absolute embarrassment to John Curtis if you could have put those 2 schools side by side. We moved to Scotland in the early 70s. My dad was in oil and gas, and when we came back from Scotland, my mom had retired from teaching, and she said, "Well, I'm not going to send you back to be a eating and drinking and sleeping football dummy. We're going to put you in Newman because we have the ability to do it, and it's near where we live." And so I got plugged into Newman at the most awkward time in my life, during the most awkward period in history when disco was coming into fashion, and so. My first day at Newman was one of the most traumatic experiences of my entire life. I loved everything about growing up uptown. At 60, when I look at the landscape now, I'm terrified that everything that comes out of my mouth sounds like my father sounded when I was a kid. But being locked out, being kicked out of the house in the morning, and we ran the Ladder Library was our playground. We ran a stretch from the Jungle Yard where we played football on Henry Clay Avenue, all the way to the Garden District, and rode our bikes everywhere. Kind of things you just can't think about now. But one of my favorite memories is one of the most gorgeous architectural pieces of the landscape of New Orleans was Tulane Stadium. Right? I mean, it was just, for those of you who aren't from here, it was spitting distance right over here, and an absolutely gorgeous facility that was built out to accommodate crowds for the Saints games in the late '60s, and it existed and housed Tulane and the Saints until the Superdome was built. And my very first football game playing for Newman, when I was on the varsity team, was the very last game that was played in Tulane Stadium. So I got to actually play football in
You want to remind us how long ago that was, so we can tell how old you are? That was 1970.
1979.
1979. That's right.
And once it was shut all the way down, I then were my criminal years, and I took to stealing everything out of Tulane Stadium that I get my hands on. And to this day, hanging up in the bar at City Grocery is a 5-foot by 5-foot Falstaff beer sign that I stole out of that stadium in my mother's Mercedes.
Well, the Tulane police are right over there. There's no prescription on that.
Back.
I think I'm past the statute of limitations.
Yeah, well.
Anyway.
I know y'all, I'm going to embarrass her, but Cheryl just stepped in. Cheryl, say hey to everybody. Y'all give Cheryl a big round of applause. Don't hold it against her, but the Quirks went to St. Angela Marisi and grew up in Metairie, but they New Orleans people now. You can't talk about that. John, you remember, so how many people remember Tulane Stadium? How many people made money parking cars on the way to the football games?
Wait, Mitch, who says that you were there when Dempsey made the kick?
I was there.
Okay.
Go on,
Wait,
go on,
there's
go on.
no way all the
100%.
people who say they were there were there.
I was there.
I want to admit I was in the parking lot when we heard I was in the parking lot. Dad had said, we're gone.
I ran for mayor a couple of times and I lost the first 2. Everybody I met voted for me. Nobody voted against me. So I was like, I don't understand that either. But for those of you, Tulane Stadium taught people a lot of lessons. For those of you that don't remember it, it was like a massive stadium. It was cement. Tom Dempsey actually kicked, right? John Gilliam ran the first run back back in the day, for those of y'all that don't remember. Those of you that have got not here, Avi, I'm looking at you guys right there, and Yeoman Stadium. This was a massive piece That was kind of right where the new gym is and the pool and all of that stuff. It was just a massive thing. And on the weekends, when the Saints would play, particularly, the entire area of uptown New Orleans would shut down and people would park, and every kid made their money, right, of stealing somebody else's driveway and parking cars. And that's how you made your lunch money the entire time, and people enjoyed it. And of course, until they knocked it down, and then everybody went downtown to the Superdome. Tulane at some point in time got tired of sending all their folks down there and said, wouldn't it be great if we got a stadium back? And that's how Yeoman Stadium got back over here. I'm sure a lot of great stories about that. My brother Mark tells a story about learning a lesson about honesty. He and his friends used to go watch the Saints play football, and they stole a couple footballs one day.
Don't point at me.
I'm not pointing at you. I'm pointing. Sorry.
I mean,
My brother Mark.
Direction of the stadium.
And they brought and my father came home one time. Mark had this new football, and he said, "Son, where'd you get that football from?" And he said, "Well, I took it from the Saints thing." And he said, "You go back over there, and you give that back to the coach. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna bring you back myself.
Wow.
And I'm gonna teach you the lesson about don't take stuff that don't belong to you." Currence didn't learn that lesson, but he must have learned it later in his life. All right, T, come on. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
There
and
was
what's
no
going
planning
on.
for this. I'd like to
There's
share
no
with you
plan.
all. There was no direction, no nothing. Anyway, so
Go wherever you want. This is a jazz ensemble
Okay.
right now.
T, don't feel bad. I'm the afterthought after everybody dropped out.
I don't think so. Growing up for me was just the cousins. I was just everywhere all the time with all my cousins and in the neighborhood. And I hate thinking of kids all the time now on computers and whatnot. We would run around the neighborhood and pick up acorns and then have teams and just beat each other with it. I don't know why that was a great idea. And then my friend Peggy Trice and I got really good at where we lived, where I lived. We would take water balloons and toss them from the second floor over to the street, and we were really good at timing when the car would hit, and then the water balloon would crash on the car, and then we would run. Well, turns out I hit a couple taxis a few times that had come from Commander's Palace. Anyway, and so here comes my mother. "Do you have any idea where that taxi's coming from?" Anyway, so that was a fun day. But the Brennan family favorite trick with the cousins was we'd go to Dickie's house, and we would all hide in the bushes, and then we would take a purse and put it in the street looking like it had fallen out of a car with money sticking out of it. And to this purse, we would tie clear fishing wire, and then we're all in the bushes with the string, and when the poor idiot gets out to go get the purse, and then sometimes they would kind of look around, or whatever, but if they took the purse, man, we would yank that purse, and they would just jump back, and then 20 Brennans would jump out of the bushes, and that's what we thought was fun.
There you go. All right, let's hear what the Francis clan had going on.
Let me say, New Orleans is a unique place, for a young brother like myself to have had the opportunity to be a roommate of potentially the next president of the United States, Mitch Landrieu.
Don't tell them all those stories. Can't say that.
So if y'all want to know what's up, call me. Honestly, I hit the birth lottery like a lot of us here. Having grown up on Xavier University's campus, and I'll date myself, in the 60s, when segregation was pretty strong. But the beauty about growing up on a college campus, there were two places that were my safe spots, were the art department and the gym. And on this campus in the middle of New Orleans, we didn't know racism. I mean, there were a lot going on, but the professors, teachers were primarily white, mostly nuns. It was founded by the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament, Catherine Drexel, who was canonized as saint by Pope John Paul not that long ago. And my mother knew her, and my grandfather used to drive her around. And she was a very crafty lady in terms of how she navigated this very difficult, segregated city to be able to buy land and to create the only black Catholic university in the country. That still thrives. But, having, and I will add that now produces more, black medical students than any other school in the country. Sure. But, so what was interesting about growing up in this sort of like hub, if you will, was that blacks, whites, and others just got along like, nothing was wrong with the rest of the world. And I got to hang out with fraternities and go to panty raids at the sororities and do all sort of really fun stuff as a child, and it really stunted my development. It's really a trick question growing up in New Orleans because I haven't grown up yet. But I do want to relate, because I have 5 brothers and sisters, and you learn how to operate a no-huddle offense. That's why it's easy to just show up and just talk smack. But when I was 10 years old, my brother and I went to go play baseball at Carrollton Boosters Playground in New Orleans. And we were out there having a good time. We ended up integrating the Catholic schools. St. Rita was one we went to. And all my friends there played ball at St. Rita's. And so my brother and I went over there to play baseball and, made the all-star team. And one day we got called off the field to go into the booster house where my mother was sitting in tears. This is New Orleans, right? You want to hear a story about New Orleans. So my mother was in tears, and we're like, what's up? And the guy looked at me, Stovall, and said, oh, well, I'm sorry, you guys can't play here because you're black. And we were like, devastated. And I'm thinking, Jesus, how am I going to go back to my school? I'm telling my kids, I'm black. I didn't know that. I grew up on Davis campus. Who knew? I feel like Beyonce, right? I mean, Beyonce's black, right? Anyway, there was a guy who is like my second father who came to the rescue, Mitch Landrieu, who I think was a city councilman at the time, who basically, let's give it a round of applause for Moon, man. Who basically said, you're integrating NARDA, I'm shutting it all down. Now, I'm telling this story because I want to tell you how important that story was to my family, not necessarily to me, because I'm good, right? So, but my sisters. So we all got to play at Carrollton Playground. So I have 5 brothers and sisters. My 2 sisters played softball, played with your sisters, and a lot of other maybe families here. Now, one of my sisters is the president of Magic Johnson Enterprises. The other sister is the chairman of WISE, which is the National Organization for Women in Sports Executives. And probably, I shouldn't say it, but she's on the board of the USTA, the US Open, and may be president one day. And
You're
all
in
of
so
this
much trouble
happened.
for just saying that.
Huh?
You're in so much trouble for just telling everybody that's going to happen.
Well, no, it's not possible. I mean, I don't know. It's like she's in that.
It's gonna happen.
It's
Absolutely.
she's in the.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
It's
whatever.
going to happen. We just
Anyway.
made news.
No, I don't know that for a fact. I'm not on the board. I mean, you could look at the thing on the line.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, whatever. My point is, good things happen in New Orleans when good people do good things. And
Yeah. No, you didn't mess up. No, you did good.
And the Landrieu family, who is as much a part of New Orleans as the Moriel family and the Brennan family and the Currence family and many of your families, the little things that you do to make a difference in people's lives, you just have no idea how that may empower people to go on and do phenomenal things. And so that's one of my
Thank you,
stories.
Timmy. Thank you. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for remembering my daddy who left us a couple years ago. And of course, Moon and the precursor to that story is that Moon and Norman became fast best friends on their first day of law school together when Norman was the first African American to attend Loyola Law School back in the early 50s, along with another guy named Ben Edwards. And many, many, many years later, I remember this story because my father's told me this many, many, many times. On that day when he was, Helena's here, our council member at large. Helena, it's nice to see you. He was a councilman at large, and he got that call from Leslie Lawson-Schlager, I think was the guy's name, who said, they got this black family trying to integrate Carrollton Boosters. And they're like, well, what's this? What are you talking about? What's their name? It says Norman Francis, who happened to be my father's best friend at the time. And my father got in his car and went over there, and he fired everybody. And essentially, Timmy's too humble to tell you this, but it was his brother David. And both Timmy and David and Kathleen, who's his sister that's going to lead the USTA, and Christine, who is Matt
Maybe.
Maybe. They were all spectacular athletes. And so not only, there's this thing about, you ought to if we want to judge people on merit, you ought to let people just play. And the greatest leveler is sports to find out whether people can play. T, you were a great soccer player, you know it. Is that all of a sudden when the Francises started playing ball, they were the MVPs of every league in everything that they played. They really were. Timmy's a good pitcher, by the way. He's left-handed. The reason I remember this, and is this true or not, that he's left-handed, and he used to drag his foot. So he had to put a piece of leather on his shoe so he wouldn't hold out his toe. Is that true or not?
And we couldn't afford new shoes. Yeah, it's true.
And he couldn't afford new shoes. But the whole point of that thing was, and for those of you that are here, in my life, they're eight, like the Currences and like the Brennan family, we are a city of families. Just in my neighborhood, I grew up on Prius Street in General Pershing, which is in Broadmoor, by the way. It's in the 12th Ward. It's not Uptown, because Uptown's not that side of Claiborne Avenue, so the Landrieux lived on the other side. And for those of y'all that may not remember this, Currence, you remember this, on the corner of Napoleon and Claiborne, there used to be a K&B. Mm-hmm. Y'all remember that K&B? Y'all remember that? No, y'all do. How's your mom and them? And they used to, when you went in there, they used to have a fountain, meaning that you could actually sit down in there with chairs and they would serve you burgers, and they had really good chocolate malts, right? That's the neighborhood that we grew up in. In that neighborhood where my family grew up, by the way, my mom is over there right now. My mama grew up across the street before she met my daddy. She's been living on that same corner almost all of the 92 years of her life. Now, there were 9 of us, 2 dogs, 2 parents, 2 grandparents living in that house. And next door were the Andrews, Andrieus, they had 8 people. And then right around the corner were the Hennessy's, they had 9. And then there were the O'Seagans, and they had 14. And then there was the Shirers, and they had 7.
And the Foley's had.
And then they had Foley's had 102, right by St. Rita. And Richie Foley, this God's true. Y'all remember all your Tulane family. Y'all remember Steve Foley, who's one of the great quarterbacks. This is the Foley family. They live right next door to St. Rita, and Richie still lives there. He's out there probably working on his boat right now, if you can do that. So we're like a neighborhood. So when you think about that, and I'm sure that everybody out here, and I don't just mean this to be an uptown thing, if you lived out by St. Maria Goretti, or you lived in the 9th Ward or the 8th Ward, I saw Debbie Calagero around here, Pascal Calagero, who became the Chief Justice, they live right off of Gentilly Boulevard. If y'all lived in Pine Village, all the times. But the way that we were connected back there, and John, I don't know if you played ball there, but at Carrollton Boosters, which was, by the way, y'all ready for this? It was behind Seal Test. Y'all know where the post office is? That used to be where you got ice cream at. And then Brown's Velvet used to be down over this way. And then, of course, Hanson's Snowballs, right? And the Hansons, Mr. and Mrs. Hanson, lived right around the corner from where we lived, okay? So this is about food, family, and fun. But Carrollton Boosters was a place, when you weren't playing kick the can, like, y'all remember kick the can? Like when the kids didn't have video games. Currence remembers this. Currence, you went to Monkey Hill early on your bike?
Oh, yeah.
And rode down Monkey Hill and tried to grab that branch? Not the bar.
The bar?
So Carrollton Boosters was a playground, and back in the day when Nord was really kind of a playground neighborhood area instead of the regional ball we play now, where you get in the car and you take your kids to Dallas or Houston or whatever hell you go. We had neighborhood playgrounds, and Carrollton Boosters and Wisner Playground and Eleanor and St. Maria Goretti, right? And then you had Lake Shore. This is where people really spent a lot of time. And they had girls' sports and boys' sports, and that's where kind of everybody met each other at the time and talked about these things.
No girls' sports in my era.
No girls. Well, you can talk about that. When did you start playing girls' sports at Carrollton Boosters? Do you remember?
Never.
What?
Well, they eventually have.
I was allowed to come watch you guys play.
Oh, Lord. You should have changed that law, Mitch.
I should have. That was my fault.
I'm taking over. I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
I want to put these two on the spot. Your family exempted. Name your favorite 3 restaurants in New Orleans.
Oh, that is so aggravating.
I'm not doing that. What, have you lost your mind? Commanders, and Commanders.
Okay.
Maypop. I mean, there's so many
No,
good
seriously,
restaurants.
'cause we're looking for new places.
John, talk about food.
Maypop, that's one.
So,
Oh, I got 20. I love restaurants. I'm
Okay.
in somebody else's if I'm not in.
Top 5.
Or
No way.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Go ahead, you go ahead.
Those are my friends, for crying out loud.
I
Go ahead,
love
John.
the R&O. R&O?
Oh, no?
No, R&O.
Where's
out
that?
on the lakefront.
Out on the lakefront, R&O.
Bucktown.
They got
Huh?
sesame bread out there.
That's why I'm here. When I grew up, I couldn't go to the lakefront of
Wait,
Uptown. I had to stay
hold
like
up.
in a little bubble.
If you go out to R&O's, it's one of the
R&O?
few
Still
places that
there?
has sesame seed French bread. And they got great meatball. Am I right, Currence?
Yeah, I mean, thank God Sandy Wine's not here. I'd be up to my neck in trouble since they don't use Leidenheimer's bread. You know, they put is it Gendouces? They put Gendouces on the map, I
Right.
believe.
Does anybody know the difference between Leidenheimer's bread and Gendouzi's bread?
No.
Yes.
All right, here's a question. Who's got...
What is it?
Talking about it.
What?
Wait, hold on. I have one. What's your favorite king cake?
Oh, come on.
Wait, y'all
Favorite
were
king
talking
cake.
about favorite king cake.
Let
Favorite-
them answer. That's all my friends. I'm not answering that.
Who has a, you can yell it out. Who's got a thought? What's your favorite king cake? Hey, Dell. All right, here we go. Hey,
Dong
Dell.
Fong.
Hey, Dell, raise your hand. Let's say, hey, Dell, favorite king cake. Favorite king cake? All right, what about Randaz's? Okay, the husband or the wife's?
Oh, Lord.
You know they got two of them, right?
Dong Fong, the Vietnamese.
How about, wait. How about Dong Fong? Really? Whew, I went out there to get a king cake. Cheryl sent me out there. The line was so long. Here's the trick. You can order it online, but you got to do it at Christmas. And it doesn't come out for 2 months later. John, talk to us a little bit about how you got into food and what you were thinking about. How did you get out of becoming like a financial advisor or a lawyer or an accountant, and you got into food and all the things that you're doing in all around the country, but in Oxford, Mississippi?
Process of elimination. I think I tried everything else. You know, you know, when we were little, there was no ADHD. We just had, you know, you've been eating too much sugar. You know, you're hyper. You've been eating too much sugar. And so, you know, I always had the horsepower to do well in school, but I just couldn't apply myself. And so classroom situations were challenging for me. I stumbled into cooking because, you know, here's the other thing. You know, and I mean, prior to the Brennans, and you know, Commanders really putting the Garden District in Uptown New Orleans on the map from a restaurant standpoint. If you were from Uptown New Orleans, you went and ate at restaurants. You didn't work in them, right? I mean, it mystified my father to no end that you know, that I was turning my life towards going in the restaurant business. He could not get his head around it. I came home to help open Gautreau's in '89, and so Gautreau's is a little bit, for those of you who don't know it, is a little jewel box of a restaurant that's tucked into a very residential neighborhood.
Really good.
And my mentor,
He just stole my sous chef for the chef, you know, right?
yeah,
Still friends. It's good. It's good.
They stole your
Sous chef. A sous chef.
That shit happens all the time. Come on.
yes, it does. It's very real, isn't it? Anyway, I came home to help Larkin open Gautreau's. Larkin was my real
Selman.
mentor. Was 100% responsible for you know, my true passion for fine food. But what's interesting, most people don't know, is Ann Russell actually opened Gautreau's. Her husband was a doctor from the Garden District, and they owned the building. And Ann was an incredible cook. She catered for everybody's parties. And at some point, about the time I graduated from Newman, Ann said, well, I'm going to take the building, I'm going to turn that into a restaurant. So she just thought she would open a ladies' lunch spot. Didn't know anything about, you know, running a restaurant. And so she drafted my mom into service. And so my mom was her sous chef inside of Gautreau's before Larkin bought it. And so she was there for a couple of years with Ann before Gautreau's took off. And
Yeah.
anyway, and you know, then I was incredibly fortunate once I left Gautreau's to go to work for the Brennan family, where I learned the business of restaurants, and I learned from one of the masters ever what hospitality truly is. Service is a set of rules. What Ella Brennan understood, and her brothers, I should say, as well, was that hospitality was completely different. You can teach anybody how to serve, but the hospitality piece of what goes on inside of that organization, never ceased to amaze me. George Rico, who was the maitre d' at Commanders, is one of the most unbelievable people I've ever seen in my entire life. My dad didn't understand the restaurant business at all before I got into it, and he was of the stripe of uptown New Orleanians that would go on the night before the Sugar Bowl, just show up at Commanders with 8 people going, "Hey, George, you got a table?" Which my response, I'm not a people person, would have involved a half dozen expletives.
He's kidding.
And George could very calmly, say, "Mr. Currence, if you and your party would go and grab a drink, we'll get a table for you in a minute." Where they had no room, but George had some sort of table stretcher, human shoehorn thingy that, no bullshit, 20 minutes later, there'd be a table for 8 people and we'd sit down and eat. Being able to drink from that fountain, it is to this day what I learned there is a huge part of as I'm scaling a breakfast concept. We have about 20 locations now. That our culture, which
And the name of it is?
Big Bad Breakfast.
Thank you.
Thank
If y'all have never been to Big Bad Breakfast, treat yourself, please. It's a big thing.
Can I tell him?
But
And they use bacon grease to cook.
And by the way, it's
Out of a
that's
little
good for
coffee
you.
can.
So, John, you
tell
mentioned
him why it's good for you, John.
it's healthier for you than olive oil.
Shit.
Look, John Currence mentioned a guy named
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
John Currence mentioned a guy named Larkin Selman, who grew up to be a really great chef, but he learned how to play tennis at City Park. Does anybody remember where the City Park tennis courts used to be before the ones are now? How many people played on the City Park tennis courts? They always had a bad bounce out there because for some reason they couldn't get it in. Now for some reason they got a pickleball court. Does anybody know what pickleball is now? Y'all got Rini Marcus right there, one of the great tennis players in the history of New Orleans.
Now pickleball.
Now a pickleball champion is right there. T, when John was
Can
talking
I tell a
about...
George Rico story real quick?
Can you do what?
Yeah.
George Rico, he mentioned a lot of y'all knew
100%.
George Rico, the maitre d'. Anyway, he was quite a character. And
He was great.
people would drive by at Christmas with their driver, and they would just have somebody walk in and give George money once a year. And we didn't know what that was all about at first, but that's how they got the table. Anyway, and my Uncle Dick caught on and said, "George, we're going to take a walk around the cemetery." Anyway, and so we don't sell tables at Commander's Palace, but we were selling tables apparently. So his grandson is now training to do the same job.
No kidding.
But one night, I'm working next to George, who was the biggest character in the whole world, and my mother always said he spoke Honduran with a Chinese accent. You had not one clue what he was saying, but he had this unbelievable language. So you knew he was just on your side, and you'd come in and you'd say, "Oh, big chief's in town. Oh, big chief's in town. Oh, I got a table for the big boss." And he just talked like that, and everybody just loved it. And whoever you were, you're, "Come right in, pretty lady." Now, who doesn't like that, So this one night, I'm standing next to him, and this was 100% him messing with me. In comes this big ego guy with a big cowboy hat on and a flimsy looking broad, whatever, with him. And they're standing there, and he's being on, and the guy is being a total jerk to George. Just jerk, everything he's saying. "Why can't I have my table?" And George says this to him, which I promise you, like I said, you could barely understand. He said, "Don't worry, I got a table for you and your ugly wife." And I'm like, "Oh!" And I'm the only one that understood that, and he knew that. Oh.
I want to take this down 2 different roads. Number one, it occurs to me, T, that you kind of grew up in that neighborhood off of Washington, right, in that area, and you grew up across the street from a cemetery.
Yes.
All right, my daddy grew up across the street from a cemetery on Adams Street, right down the street. How many of y'all grew up in a neighborhood where there was a cemetery right in the middle of your neighborhood? Did y'all ever play in there? Did you get in that cemetery over there when you
Scare
used
the
to sneak out?
bejesus out of each other in
Would
there.
you?
Yeah. Can you imagine playing in the cemetery with Dickie Brennan? I mean, seriously, it was horrifying.
we bury people above ground. Now, we don't, like, if you're from New Orleans, okay, and you go other places, you don't understand that people don't know that we just have cemeteries right in the middle, and you think that's normal. That is not normal in other places. So if y'all go someplace and start talking about all the cemeteries by y'all's houses, quit doing that, because it makes y'all think that we're crazy. Timmy, what neighborhood, when you tell them about where you went to high school and the fact that it ain't there no more.
Well, once I tell you what it was for, you'll know why. It was a high school seminary. Ooh.
Do you see his beautiful wife right here? Yeah.
But the reason the reason I want you to tell this story is because as people migrated in and out of New Orleans and folks moved around, high schools came and high schools went, and they have great memories for people. As a matter of fact, right on that corner over there, you see construction going on. That used to be that used to be Mercy High School. My wife and all of her sisters went, and now it's gone. It ain't there no more. We talked a little bit earlier about Gacio's. It's not there. Gus Myers is not there. For many people that lived all around, there are lots of schools that have gone down.
Yeah.
You went to a school that's right over there, so tell them about that.
It was called St. John Vianney Prep. It was a very...
Who remembers that? Raise your hand. There you go.
It was a really small all-boys school. We maybe had 200 people in the whole school. It was for young men who had expressed an interest in becoming a priest. It's funny,
Well.
My parents were very Catholic. They sent us all there, so it wasn't like I was special. But I have really great memories because I played against Sean Toohey. We played against Newman, Michael Lewis, Wally Marcus. I remember playing against him. He was so big and he hit so hard. And I played football. We played both ways, and we had little guys on the team. I was a quarterback, would come and say, "Hey, can you run the play to the right because my shoulder hurts?" It was true. And I guess because of a dwindling interest in becoming priests, they couldn't sustain the school, and then they tore it down. But it used to be right behind Costco. Right by the...
Before Costco got there. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
That used to be where J.C. Penney was.
But it was a fabulous high school. Have fond memories.
Yeah, so just to kind of bring y'all's mind back, long time ago, before they had Piccadilly. Y'all remember Piccadilly? Y'all used to have family meals on Tuesday for free. That's where Cheryl and I used to bring our kids because we couldn't afford anything.
First restaurant I ever went to.
But before Piccadilly's, which used to be right where Gus Meyer was at, right across the thing where we used to get our uniforms for school was J.C. Penney, right, and Gotcha's and all of that. Behind
security.
That was...
Remember security?
Security.
Oh, and security
Yes,
sporting goods.
Sporting goods, yeah.
I mean, Lord have mercy, before they had all of the Big Ten. That's a good catch, T.
That's a good one.
That is really good.
Right down the street from that place where you got Frosties. What was the name of that ice cream? Soft freeze ice cream place.
I remember that.
Remember that?
How many people remember Jim's Fried Chicken?
By the Firestone.
On air. Ooh, what are y'all? Who remember Jim's Fried Chicken? Dr. John Fresh. You should know this because you're a doctor. Was it okay for them to put chicken on top of bread and let all the grease go on top of the pickles, and you ate the pickles and all at one time? And College Inn used to be not where the bowling alley is anymore, because that bowling alley, everybody remember where that bowling alley used to be? It used to be on Tulane and Carrollton Avenue. Y'all remember that?
Yep.
How about that? Now it's all wrapped up together, and then Jim's is gone and there's a Popeyes there. Things just change. What the heck is happening?
I mean, you used to get fried chicken at Mackenzie's and the best turtles ever.
Who remembers that? Y'all remember Mackenzie's?
Hey.
Y'all used to get they had king cake at Mackenzie's too.
Yeah, they did.
A long time
I
ago.
tell you a K&B story.
Yes, you
I
may.
was standing at my house one day, and there used to be no awards in the restaurant business really or anything, and all of a sudden, Playboy magazine did a list of the top 20 restaurants in America. And there was no internet or anything, it was just telephone. And somebody called my mother and said, Commander's Palace is in the top 20 restaurants in America. It's in Playboy magazine. She's like, oh my God. So she comes and gets me and says, you have to go to the K&B and get the Playboy magazine, which you had to get behind the counter. And I said, I'm not doing that. She said, well, I can't do that. So I had to go to the K&B and go up to the lady and say, I'd like 20 Playboy magazines.
All right, look, we're about to. we're about to open this up. So if anybody's got a good New Orleans story, I'm going to do it. We don't have a whole lot of time left. But wait, Debbie, you come up here first, so you can go first. Come up here, Debbie. Come up. This Debbie Caligaro from the 8th Ward. But before y'all leave, what was the first bar you went to, like when you were 15 in New Orleans, because they didn't card anybody? Okay.
Shanahan.
All right, wait. Shanahan? Wait. You go first. Shanahan?
I said Shanahan.
Where was
Pictures-
Shanahan's at the time?
On Claiborne Avenue.
Right where Blockbuster
Right,
was.
right across the street from the married, the married dorm right up here. Out of Frost Top.
So y'all know on Claiborne Avenue, if y'all go down the street, there's a Shell gas station. Right behind the Shell gas station, there's a place where you get your clothes cleaned. That used to be Shanahan's back in the day. And evidently, the door was open, the back door was open, the side door was open. And if you wanted to meet your friends there when you got out of high school, that's where you can go drink.
And they
So that was
sold
a good
pictures
place.
of kamikazes.
They
for,
sure
for
did.
$7.50.
Where'd you go, Timmy?
To get my first drink.
Where was your first underage drink in a bar in New Orleans?
Oh, at a bar.
Well before you were 18.
Not in my dad's cabinet.
No. Where'd you?
It would have probably been JT's Lounge on Pond Street in Gertown.
Well, there you go.
Brothers
Okay.
used to hang out. Yeah.
This is not
F&M at
still
the window. The window at F&M, you know?
The window at F&M's,
You
right?
go to the window and they go, you know, are you, they go, are you 18? You go, yes, sir. You know, and then they, here's a drink.
was
close
open
the-
All right,
then?
mine was TJ Quills on Maple Street. Y'all remember Quills? But I'm gonna end this session with this story. My daughter.
No, they got questions, don't they?
Yeah, one second. No, I'm gonna end us in a second. One of my daughters comes home, is of age, and comes home like at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I meet her at the door going, okay, why were you at F&M so late? And she said, how'd you know I was at F&M's? I said, because everybody in the city has danced on the pool table at F&M's one time in their life. So who wants a cop to that? Ashley? All right, look, everybody can line up and tell us stories about New Orleans. Debbie Caligaro, the oldest of 8 or 9? 8? 10 on Gentilly Boulevard and in Pine Village. She's going to give us a little bit on the other side of Canal, talk. So Debbie, what do you remember?
I'm a Mount Carmel girl, and my first drink was at Dionysius when I was 15.
Oh, wow.
Dionysius on Magazine Street, right off of Jefferson. But my singular memory of my childhood was so incredible, and it had to do with the Landrieu family. Hurricane Betsy
That's true.
in 1965. We lived in Gentilly on Claremont Drive, which was near Elysian Fields, Gentilly Boulevard. We had about 3 or 4 feet of water in the house. We left the house in a boat. My mother was pregnant for our 8th child, and Daddy and Moon were in a law practice together. He was Moon's other best friend besides
Yeah.
Dr. Francis.
He loved
Anyway,
pasta.
Verna was pregnant for, I think, number 9. And Moon and Verna said, well, where are y'all going to go? You have to come to our house to stay till your house gets fixed. So can you imagine?
No, I remember this.
I was 9 years old. Mary was 6 months older than me, so I don't think she was even 10 yet. And we had 15 children under the age of 9 and under in their house on South Prior. And it was the greatest time of our lives because we didn't have to go to school.
And how much rum was in that house, ma'am?
Rob, no, Moon said, look, find your buddy, bunk up, and we just had kids everywhere. And poor Mama and poor Verna, all they did was cook and do laundry all day long. Big pregnant. And the daddies got to go to work. I'm sure they were still on Broad. And it was the best time, but it just shows the community we had, the love between our families, and it was
Hurricane
just
parties
the
were
greatest.
So when for how many people, like, I don't want to underestimate the pain of what everybody went through for Katrina, but I reminded everybody that when Katrina hit, that our mindset in this city is like, well, hurricane, that's like a time for a party on the porch, like a hurricane party. Remember before it was really awful. And, hurricanes would come in and hurricanes would go and things would get blown down. And then people would just like drink on the porch and then we would clean up. But you forget that back, we had Betsy, we had Camille, those were really devastating storms. In the city, especially the Ninth Ward, back in the day in the 8th Ward, was flooded at the time, and families just do what we've done all the time. And I actually remember that. It was traumatic for me. I had trauma back in the day. Yes, ma'am.
This one's on.
Come on, Alice Mason, get up there. Tell us a story about records.
Go ahead, real
Go
quick.
ahead.
Just two things. I grew up in the most idyllic family in the world, Blanche and Jim Comiskey.
Oh.
And I made my debut with T. Martin and Hermes. And the most fantastic thing was the Mid-City Parade and the Carrollton Parade lined up on Canal Street back then by the cemeteries where I grew up. And my dad and mom rented the Lucky Dog hot dog man to come in front of our house. So we were about 6 years old, we would take one bite of this foot-long hot dog, put it down, and get about 20 of those all day long.
How many people, now listen, I want you to listen to my question really carefully. How many people have not had a lucky dog in New Orleans?
What?
Alan, that's terrible. Has anybody, okay, here's another question.
How many-
Has anybody seen a lucky dog stand anywhere else in America?
No.
Exactly.
No.
Alan, tell
And
them.
do you remember Takey Outie?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, take me outie.
Or,
good one.
or last one, the tamale guys on the corner of Louisiana
Manuel.
and Napoleon.
Manuel's tamales, too.
Manuel's Hot Tamales. Who wants to give them a shout out? Love it. I love that. Alan.
So, first off, I have to say that my family had Smith's Records, and we serviced a lot of people, but I remember very, very much selling records and tapes, et cetera, to Ella, and so many people throughout. I feel very privileged to have had that experience. And of course, over here where used to be Loyola Fieldhouse, where we park today, my parents brought a lot of acts here, you know, the big name acts that were there, Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass, and the Supremes, and Nancy Wilson and Johnny Rivers, all those people. But I do remember my wife of blessed memory was a hair stylist. And she married me, and of course, you know, had her own little place over here, not far away from Tulane. She opened up, and she used to cut the hair for a lady and a friend of hers. They went to seminary school together, as it were. They were both going to become nuns, and one of them decided not to become a nun, and one of them did. One of them was Sister Peggy, who went to San Antonio, and the other one was Verna Landrieu. She found a guy by the name of Maurice Moon Landrieu. And thank God for that. So
Thank you for that, Alan. Thank you. All right, we're actually out of time. We're going to take one more comment, and then we're going to roll out of here.
I'll be quick. It's both a Ain't There No More and a First Drink story. In high school, freshman and sophomore year, a friend of mine, Chris Lang, who lived all the way out in Chateau, I lived on Camp Street uptown, figured out that we could get into Tyler's Beer Garden.
Yes, Tyler's.
Pretty easily.
That's
and
a great
listen
memory.
to music. And every Friday was James Rivers Movement. Every
Yes.
Thursday was Ellis Marcellus Trio. He would bring a couple of his students from the UNO Jazz program. And my friend Chris Lang and I, at 14 and 15, would go Thursday nights, school night. Apparently, our parents did not care that we were out drinking at a jazz club on a school night, which we were all the time. And we would go to watch Ellis Marcellus, not just because we were 14 and 15, but for a variety of reasons. We were the only people like us at Tyler's Beer Garden on Thursday nights. Bud long necks were $1. Oysters on the half shell were 10 cents a piece. 10 cents a piece. You could order 6, you could order 26, you could order whatever number you wanted to.
Yep.
There was no cover for the place. That was right in our budget. And we probably would have been the coolest high school students in America if we hadn't been sitting there the entire time, every night, thinking, we are the coolest high school students.
Thank you. All right, you guys, we got to, unfortunately, end this. I hope y'all had a great time. New Orleans endures, and she will endure forever. Thank you all for all of your love. Thank you, guys. For